The fog that night was no ordinary mist. It coiled over the Thames like a living thing, serpentine and hungry, swallowing the glow of gas lamps along the docks. Detective Adrian Cole stood at the edge of Wapping Old Stairs, his breath visible in the icy air as the silhouette of the HMS Peregrine loomed ahead. The ship was a jagged spectre, its masts skeletal against the moonless sky. 20 years lost to the sea, now returned, rotting yet eerily intact, like a corpse refusing to decompose. "Legends don't dock at midnight, Martin," Cole said, his voice low. Dr. Martin adjusted his spectacles, the lenses fogging as he squinted at the vessel. "Then let's hope this one is merely a poor imitation," he replied. The two men descended the slippery stone stairs, the river lapping hungrily at their boots. The Peregrine's hull loomed above them, its timbers groaning as if in protest. Cole ran a gloved hand along the wood. "No barnacles," he noted. Martin crouched, examining the waterline. "No rot either. This isn't a ship that's been submerged. It's been preserved." The detective's jaw tightened. Or rebuilt. They boarded cautiously, lanterns casting fractured light across the deck. The sails hung in tatters, but the ropes were taut, recently tied. Cole paused at a hatch leading below deck. "Listen," he whispered. The ship creaked, but beneath the noise was a hollow, rhythmic knocking, like a fist tapping wood. Martin frowned. "Rats?" "Rats don't knock," Cole said. In the captain's quarters, they found the logbook. Entries detailed the ship's final hours. October 12, 1872, storm worsening. Captain Voss orders cargo secured. The last entry trailed into a splatter of ink. Cole lifted the page to the light. The ink smudged. These were written days ago, not decades. Martin opened a drawer, pulling out a brass compass. "Engraved," he said, holding it up. "To Elias, my compass in stormy seas." "Father, Elias Voss," Cole murmured, "the captain's son, inherited the family shipyard after his father's disappearance." "And lost it to creditors 5 years ago," Martin added. "A man with motive to resurrect a ghost." By dawn, the docks swarmed with constables and gawkers. A widow in a moth-eaten shawl pushed through the crowd, her voice shrill. "My husband saw that ship the night he vanished. Said it glowed like a demon's eye." Cole intercepted her, noting the tremor in her hands. "When did he disappear?" 3 weeks past," she said. "He worked the night shift at Voss's old warehouse, came home raving about shadows on the river. Then he was gone." The dockmaster, a barrel-chested man named Hargrave, spat tobacco into the water as Cole questioned him. I leased the warehouse to Voss last month. Said he needed storage for antique timber. Paid in silver, no questions asked." Hargrave's eyes darted away. "But I heard things. Hammers at odd hours. Men with scarves over their faces." Cole pressed. "And the Peregrine's return?" Hargrave palmed a silver coin nervously. "Ships come and go. I don't note their names." Below deck, Martin pried open a crate stamped with the East India Company's faded crest. Inside, nestled in straw, were porcelain vases, too delicate for naval cargo. Cole smashed one against the floor, opium pellets, raw and pungent, scattered like black pearls. "Smuggling," Martin said, "but why the theatrics?" "Fear," Cole replied. "Inspectors avoid haunted ships. And legends." He plucked a strand of rope from the rigging, rubbing it between his fingers. "Legends hide flaws. This isn't hemp, it's manila fiber, modern rigging, masquerading as old." A constable shouted from the hold. Hidden beneath a false floor, they found ledgers detailing shipments. October 5th, 200 lbs raw opium bound for Limehouse. Buyer, the White Dragon. Martin traced the symbol inked beside the entries, a serpent coiled around a lotus. "Triad," he muttered. "This goes deeper than Voss." At the Anchor's Rest, a riverside tavern reeking of gin and mildew, Cole found their drunkard witness. Jemmy One-Eye Briggs slurred into his ale. "Saw the Peregrine glide in, I did. No oars, no steam, just shadows crewing her." He hiccuped, sliding a silver pocket watch across the table. "One of the spectres dropped this." Cole flipped the watch open. Inside, a portrait of a younger Elias Voss stared back. The engraving matched the compass. To Elias, my compass in stormy seas. Why come forward now? Cole asked. Jemmy's single eye gleamed. The ghosties paid in silver, but the dead don't silence witnesses. You lot do. Voss's shipyard was a graveyard of half-built hulls and rusted cranes. Cole and Martin found him in a drafty office, blueprints of the Peregrine strewn across his desk. The man was gaunt, his eyes fever-bright. You have seen her then, Voss said. My masterpiece, a replica so perfect even the sea believed her real. Cole placed the pocket watch on the desk. You crewed her with men in shadow, paid them to vanish. But Jemmy Briggs kept souvenirs. Voss laughed bitterly. My father died a fool, chasing glory in a storm. I would have restored our name. The opium, a means to an end. The Triad promised funding until they demanded more. And the White Dragon, Cole pressed. Voss's bravado cracked. They will kill me for failing, just like they killed that dock worker, the widow's husband. He stumbled onto their shipment. As constables dragged Voss away, Cole stared at the replica's blueprints, every plank, every nail, meticulously documented. Too meticulous. Martin joined him, holding a ledger page. The timber shipments. Voss ordered enough wood for 2 ships. Cole's pulse quickened. There's another replica. Somewhere in the fog, a second ghost ship waited. The rain lashed against the windows of Halstead Manor like 1,000 accusing fingers, each droplet echoing the tension coiled in the air. Detective Adrian Cole stood in the grand study, his gaze fixed on the chessboard. The pieces were frozen mid-battle. A king toppled, its crown cracked, while a black queen loomed triumphantly over the ruins. But it was the man slumped in the leather armchair that held Cole's attention. Victor Halstead, the reclusive chess grandmaster, sat rigid, his eyes wide and unblinking, a single trickle of dried blood trailing from his left ear. The game clock beside the board ticked relentlessly, its red numerals glaring. 100:00. He died at the exact moment his time ran out, Dr. Martin observed, crouching to examine the body. No signs of struggle, no poison on his lips, almost as if he surrendered. Cole's eyebrow arched. A man like Halstead doesn't surrender. He has been checkmated in life's final game. Halstead's study was a cathedral to intellect. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves groaned under treatises on strategy, while portraits of chess legends watched like silent jurors. Yet the room felt wrong. A fire smoldered in the hearth, though the Grandmaster's corpse was cold. A half-empty glass of sherry sat on a side table, its surface dustless. Someone was here recently, Cole said, but not to kill him, to watch. Martin lifted Halstead's wrist, rigor mortis stiffening the joints. Time of death matches the clock, around midnight. But look at this. He pointed to the Grandmaster's other hand, clenched around a knight piece. The wood was splintered, as if gripped with unnatural force. Adrenaline, Martin murmured, fear. A ledger lay open on the desk, its entries cryptic. Payment to White Dragon £500. Settlement for 1872 debt. Cole's pulse quickened. The triad symbol, a serpent coiled around a lotus, was inked faintly in the margin. Halstead had ties to the opium operation, he said. This debt dates back to the Peregrine's disappearance. What did he owe them? Halstead's live-in assistant, Clara Voss, no relation to Elias, paced the hallway outside, her hands trembling. Cole noted the surname but filed it away. He had been different lately, Clara said, locked himself in the study for days, arguing with someone. But there was never anyone there. Arguing about what? Cole pressed. The past. He kept shouting, "You betrayed me." Then he would laugh. It was horrible. In the study, Martin discovered a hidden compartment in the desk. Inside lay a faded photograph of Halstead with a younger man, both in naval uniforms aboard the HMS Peregrine. The inscription read, "To Victor, my brother in strategy. Captain Alistair Voss, 1872. Voss, Cole muttered. Elias' father. Halstead served with him. The puzzle deepened. A journal tucked beneath Halstead's pillow revealed frantic entries. October 12th. Has found me. The debt is called. October 15th. The game begins. I must outplay him, but how? He knows every move. October 20th, I am both hunter and prey. The final entry, dated the night of Halstead's death, was a single line. Checkmate is mercy. Martin lingered over the medical cabinet in Halstead's bedroom. Vials of laudanum and a prescription for severe nervous agitation dated back years. This isn't for anxiety, he said. It's for episodes. Psychosis, perhaps. Or dissociative identity disorder. Cole pieced it together. Halstead's opponent was an alter ego, a manifestation of his guilt over betraying Captain Voss decades earlier. The Grandmaster had been the Triad's silent partner in the Peregrine's original opium scheme, sabotaging the ship to erase evidence. But the guilt fractured his mind. The chess game was a ritual, Cole concluded. Halstead pitted his present self against his past. When the clock expired, the alter ego won, driving him to suicide. He recreated the final moments, Halstead, sweating under the lamplight, moving pieces for two players. The queen delivering checkmate. The hand reaching not for a gun, but for a vial of potassium chloride stolen from Martin's own medical bag during a prior visit. A self-administered heart attack, staged as a duel. But one thread dangled. In Halstead's safe, Cole found a sealed letter addressed to Elias Voss. Inside was a deed to the second replica ship, the Peregrine's twin, anchored in Liverpool. He meant to warn Elias, Martin said. Too late. As they left the manor, Cole paused. Halstead's debt wasn't to the Triad, it was to himself. The real betrayal was abandoning his friend's son to the Triad's wrath. The storm had ceased, leaving the air sharp and clean, yet the detective's mind churned. The White Dragon's reach extended further than he'd feared, into guilds, governments, and the shattered psyches of guilty men. Somewhere, the second Phantom ship waited, and aboard it, Cole suspected, lay the key to the Triad's modern empire. The docks of Liverpool churned under a tempest, waves clawing at the piers like feral beasts. Detective Adrian Cole gripped the rim of his hat as wind ripped through the harbour, salt stinging his eyes. Beside him, Dr. Martin squinted at the deed clutched in his gloved hand. A single line of text burned into the parchment. Berth 17, Graving Dock. The White Dragon sails at dawn. Poetic, Martin shouted over the gale, if not for the fact that dragons don't exist. No, Cole said, staring at the shadowy outline of a ship moored in the distance. But replicas do. The HMS Peregrine's twin loomed ahead, its mast spearing the bruised sky, identical to its phantom sister in every way, save for one detail. The hull bore fresh streaks of crimson paint, crude brushstrokes forming the shape of a serpent devouring a lotus. The Triad's mark, a warning or a challenge. Hours earlier, in the claustrophobic back room of a Liverpool pawnshop, Cole had laid out Halstead's coded map. The parchment was aged, its edges singed, but the ink glinted faintly, a mixture of silver and opium residue. A chemical cipher, Martin realized, holding the map to a gas lamp. Heat revealed hidden coordinates and a name, Inspector Gerald Hayes. Cole's jaw tightened. Hayes had led the initial investigation into the Peregrine's reappearance. Hez the leak. Or a target, Martin cautioned. They found Hayes in a pub near the docks, his uniform rumpled, eyes darting to the door every third heartbeat. You shouldn't be here, Hayes hissed, clutching a whiskey. The White Dragon owns these streets, owns me. Cole slid into the booth, blocking his exit. Then you will tell us what they own. Hayes' confession spilled out, coerced into falsifying cargo logs, diverting police patrols. They threatened my daughter, he whispered. But the ship, it's not just opium. They're smuggling people. Engineers, chemists, anyone who could expose their operations. They vanish aboard the replica. A gunshot shattered the window. Hayes slumped, a bloom of red spreading across his chest. Through the broken glass, Cole glimpsed a figure in a long coat melting into the alley. The traitor had a traitor. By midnight, Cole and Martin reached berth 17. The replica Peregrine groaned against its moorings, its deck eerily silent. They boarded under cover of rain, finding the hold crammed not with opium but steel cages. Empty, save for one, a man curled on the floor, his face gaunt. Elias Voss. They forced me to build the second ship, Voss croaked, said they would sink both if I refused. Halstead tried to warn me, but he pressed a rusted key into Cole's hand. Engine room, flood valves, sink her, and the Triad's evidence dies with her. As Martin tended to Voss, Cole descended into the ship's belly. The engine room hummed, modern machinery bolted to antique timbers. He found the flood valves, and Inspector Hayes' body lashed to them, a grim sacrifice, the traitor's final act of penance. A voice echoed from the shadows. "Detective Cole, you play the game well, but checkmate belongs to the dragon." The figure stepped into the flickering lamplight. Clara Voss, Halstead's assistant, her smile sharp as a blade. "You didn't think the Triad relied on men to lead, did you?" Clara's confession unfurled like poison. She'd manipulated Halstead's psychosis, feeding his alter ego whispers of betrayal. "Guilt is a stronger weapon than opium," she said, circling Cole. "And you, detective, what keeps you sharp? The loss of your wife? The child you couldn't save?" Cole froze. Martin, emerging from the stairs, answered for him. "Empathy, something your dragon scorched out of you." The standoff shattered as the ship lurched, waves breaching the hull. Clara lunged for the flood valves, but Cole tackled her, the key skittering across the floor. Martin seized it, wrenching the valves open. Water roared in. "You will drown with us," Clara screamed. "No," Cole said, dragging her toward the deck. "But you'll face justice." They escaped the sinking ship as dawn bled into the sky. Clara, restrained in the lifeboat, spat curses. "The dragon has more ships, more souls. You will never burn them all." Cole watched the replica slip beneath the waves, air bubbles bursting like muffled screams. "One fire can light another," he said. In the wreck's wake, they found Elias Voss' final gift, a ledger hidden in his coat, listing Triad operatives embedded in Parliament, the police, even Cole's own precinct. The conspiracy's roots ran deeper than fear or greed. It thrived on legacy, on generations of silenced complicity. As the lifeboat reached shore, Cole turned to Martin. Ready for the endgame, the heart of London's opium trade lay beneath its feet, not in the sewers or the crypts, but in the glittering belly of the Royal Albert Hall, where the city's elite gathered for a charity gala. Crystal chandeliers dripped light over silk gowns and diamond cufflinks, the air thick with champagne and lies. Detective Adrian Cole adjusted his borrowed tuxedo, his eyes scanning the crowd. Somewhere in this masquerade, the White Dragon held court. Dr. Martin, posing as a physician to the aristocracy, sidled up to him, a glass of sherry in hand. "The ledger lists a Lord Pembroke as the Triad's chief financier," he murmured, "but Pembroke died 6 months ago." "Or someone wants us to think he did," Cole replied. A string quartet swelled as the crowd parted, revealing a man in a silver-trimmed wheelchair, Lord Reginald Pembroke, his face gaunt but alive, a respirator hissing at his throat. "A ghost," Martin said. "No," Cole corrected. "A dragon." Pembroke's charity, the Society for Eastern Arts, was a front. Cole had traced its donations to shell companies that funded dockyard bribes, replica ships, and laundered opium profits. But the final piece clicked when Martin recognized the respirator's design, a prototype from Halstead's medical patents. He kept the Grandmaster close, Martin realized. Halstead's guilt funded his life support. Cole approached Pembroke, the man's milky eyes tracking him. "You've come to arrest me, detective." Pembroke's voice was a wet rasp. "Or to ask, why?" "Why?" Cole's tone was ice. "Legacy? Greed?" "Survival," Pembroke hissed. "The Crown stole my family's fortunes in India. The Triad restored them. A simple transaction." As they spoke, Cole noted the Society's members encircling them. Judges, politicians, even a Scotland Yard commissioner. Clara Voss's words echoed, "You will never burn them all." Martin had prepared for this. Slipping away, he activated a fire alarm. Panic erupted as sprinklers drenched the room. Cole seized the chaos to wheel Pembroke into a private gallery, its walls lined with stolen artifacts. Jade dragons, opium pipes, and a framed photograph of the HMS Peregrine's original crew. "Your father's ship," Pembroke wheezed, following Cole's gaze. The detective stiffened. In the photo, a young naval officer stood beside Captain Voss. Cole's own father, Thomas Cole, lost at sea in 1872. He discovered our opium plot, Pembroke said. Captain Voss begged him to stay silent. When he refused, we engineered the storm that sank them both. Cole's composure cracked. For years he had believed his father's death a tragic accident. Now the truth curdled in his veins. And the replicas? A tribute, Pembroke chuckled, and a lesson. Legacy is a choice, detective. You can die a hero or live as something more. Martin burst in, police at his back. The ledger's gone public. Every name, every transaction. Your society is finished. Pembroke's respirator faltered. You think this ends with me? The dragon is an idea. Ideas don't drown. Don't burn. Cole knelt, eye level with the dying lord. But men do. He yanked the respirator's tube, not with malice but mercy. Pembroke's gasp faded into silence. In the hall's chaos, Cole found the photograph of his father. Behind it, tucked in the frame, was a faded letter. To Adrian, true justice outlives vengeance. Forgive me. Father. The detective's hands shook. For the first time in decades, he let himself weep. Weeks later, Cole stood at Wapping Old Stairs, the Thames calm under a steel-grey sky. The Triad's network lay dismantled, its replicas salvaged for scrap. Martin joined him, holding a newspaper. They're calling you a hero. Heroes don't bury fathers twice, Cole said. Yet as the fog lifted, a ship's horn echoed in the distance, not a phantom, but a modern steamer forging ahead. Martin clasped his shoulder. What now? Cole turned, the ghost of a smile on his lips. We keep sailing.